Well, hello, and thanks again for coming. I appreciate you being here. Today's going to be a lot of fun. Great guest, as always. I think all of our guests are excellent, but today is one of those ones that you really look forward to, Mr. Phay MacMahon, famous Phay MacMahon. And so, yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun, and I'm kind of excited about it and looking forward to this chat as I do with so many people who come on this podcast. Um, so, as you're listening to this, this is where it gets weird this week, which is actually next week for me because I'm recording this on June 5th, on Wednesday, June 5th. So next week, as I record this, is Infocom. And so you might actually be at the show. You might be listening to this in your hotel room. Shame on you. And getting ready to go over to the trade show. But I usually go. This particular one, I'm not going to go. Oftentimes, this is one of those shows that a lot of times I get there and I wonder, why the hell am I here? You know, it's a lot of integrators. It's a lot of AV stuff, or not even AV stuff. It's a lot of like home integration, home automation, boardroom stuff. It's just a lot of gear that I don't have a lot to do with. And it's like you got to wade through, you know, 1,000 people to get to the 10 that really matter to you. And so I'm not putting it down. It's an amazing show. I've gone to it 20 times probably in my life. And I would probably go to it this year if I didn't have so much going on in my life. And there's just a lot going on. So I know a lot of people are going, and a lot of you are there right now. And so, yeah, I hope it's a great show. I hope you all have fun, and I look forward to hearing from people. Please bring me back some stories. Touring season, of course, is in full force. We're having another crazy one this year. I just read that Coldplay just started their European tour. Of course, Metallica and AC/DC. Speaking of Europe, both of those massive stadium shows are blasting through Europe right now. Brian Hartley, we're working on getting him onto the podcast. He'll be on soon, but he's out with Five Finger Death Punch in Europe as well. And so, yeah, lots going on in Europe. A lot of busy touring and festival season in Europe. And that's one of the things I love about Europe, festival season. You know, there's some of these countries, like I talk a lot about the Netherlands, where, of course, they have... I've been told, and again, I've never actually made sure or verified or whatever, but I've been told there's 1,400 festivals annually in the Netherlands right now, which is a country of less than 20 million people. I mean, that is just an insane number of festivals. And, you know, there are guys like Steve Warren and women who spend their life going to festivals, and God bless them. You know, I love that. I wish I still liked it because I loved it when I was a kid, but I don't like it now. So, yeah, you know, Europe's booming, except, you know, I've talked about it before, but I've been reading about people being out of work in Europe, and lots of touring people, lots of stage hands who are having shows cancel and have no other work, and they're starting to be worried again. So that's interesting. You know, it's terrible, but it's interesting because it's not what I'm seeing on the grand scale. You know, it's like you hear about AC/DC packing stadiums and Metallica packing stadiums and Beyonce and all of these big artists packing stadiums, Taylor Swift, of course. But then, you know, there's some other stuff going on. And, you know, I don't know if you've read about all these cancellations. And I say all these. I mean, there's two that people are talking about a lot. Of course, J-Lo and the Black Keys are the two that I've read a lot of press on. And I'm hearing a lot of other adjustments, though. And, of course, J-Lo and Black Keys, different situations. You know, J-Lo is trying to, I think, go out there and present this as she wants to spend more time with her family. In fact, that's exactly how she's gone out and talked about it. You know, I just need to focus on family right now. But the reality is it wasn't selling. And so you can ask anyone who was involved in it. You can probably go to Ticketmaster and look yourself, but it wasn't selling. There was a lot of empty venues that were being canceled. So, so that is the problem with J-Lo for sure. Like, I think some artists think that they can get on with their life and do whatever they're doing and then just pop in and do this sold out tour. And some will get away with it, but right now I think you're getting back to a situation where people go to what's really authentic and what deserves their concert money, and they're avoiding the other stuff. They're starting to anyways. So you used to see that any old band could kind of go out and tour and fill the venue, but right now it's getting back to some version of normalcy where people are tightening their belts a little bit again, tightening their purse strings, and really focusing those entertainment dollars on stuff that they really want to see. And so we'll see how that plays out. Black Keys, I think, is a different situation. I think Black Keys in this country is a theater act, a really, really good theater act. And, they had a very successful tour of theaters in I think, Europe and the UK. Again, don't take my word for this. Go read about it. I'm not sure of the facts on all of this stuff, but from what I've read, they did really, really well in some really great theaters over in Europe, and came here and were expecting to have a successful arena tour. And this is an interesting one for me because I love the band. I think they're an incredible band. I know the one guy in the band keeps getting some bad press on his attitude or whatever. I don't care. It's not like every musician or every artist out there is a perfect person or somebody that you'd want to spend time with or have your kids follow or whatever. I don't care about that. Good songs, bad songs, good band, bad band. I don't care about everything else. But I just think that it was they should have really stuck to theaters. They were doing really well in theaters and people were loving it. Like, it's personally, I would rather see a band I really want to see in a smaller venue. I've said this ever since the start of this mayhem after the pandemic. I don't want to see rock bands that I really like and really want to see. I don't want to go see them in a stadium. I don't want to be, 250 yards away from them going, well, are they over there? Is there something going on? I mean, if I'm going to watch it on a screen, I'll watch it at home on my 80-inch television on YouTube, not on a screen that's, 200 yards away. So that's just me. I realize I'm probably getting older now and I don't have the same desires and thoughts to be with 80,000 friends that I used to be. But the other thing I'm even hearing about those stadium shows is that we're starting to run into a problem where some of them, like, there's sort of a break-even point for everyone, for Live Nation, who may own the venue, or for everyone involved, somewhere around 32,000 people or something like that. Where they can be really successful anything over that, and they start losing money below that or not making a lot of sense below that. And some of them are not doing much better than that at this point. And, again, I don't want to pick on anybody. There are some tours or packages that are out there playing stadiums that probably won't be playing stadiums much longer. So, yeah, I mean, I read this stuff and I pay attention to this stuff, not because I want something to complain about, but because I am paying attention for our industry. I'm having great conversations with very high-level people in our industry about these things, talking about where's it all going, what's going to happen next spring, what's going to happen next summer, what's going to happen for shed tours this year, what's it all doing, and what's that going to mean from an equipment standpoint, from an asset standpoint. What companies are going to be successful? Are we going to start seeing companies rolling up again and being acquired? Or are we going to see companies having some problems? It keeps me curious and it keeps me asking a lot of questions and paying a lot of attention to this stuff. So I had a really cool conversation recently, I think it was this week, with Gil Moore, who, if you're Canadian or if you're old like me, you'll probably remember an amazing band from the 80s and 90s called Triumph. And, I remember when I first heard Triumph, I was in my probably early to mid-teens, and they blew me away. I was just like, wow. And not only heard them, but saw them. I saw them live so many times. And, they were just a band that I really loved, partly because they were a three-piece band that just made so much noise, but also because they were so committed to the show. Like, they were using pyro when nobody else was using pyro. They were using, big everything when nobody else was doing that stuff. They had bigger light shows, more lights, just thousands of chrome park cans and stuff like that. And so I was talking with Gil Moore this week, and I do a bunch of business with Gil, and we've become friends over the last 10 years or whatever. And so we talk quite often. And I was talking to him this week, and he said he's got something that he's planning for 2025. And I'm not going to talk a lot about what that is, but it's around their 50th anniversary. Again, like a lot of bands that started in the 70s, they're hitting a 50-year anniversary this year, or next year, actually. And, but he's working on something, and it's going to happen next year. And it's something really cool and very different, very unique. And I can't really talk much more about that because he told me in confidence. But Gil has agreed, Gil Moore, again, the drummer, singer, founder of Triumph, and also owner of Metalworks Studios and Metalworks Sound and Lighting, or Metalworks Productions, or whatever they're called up in Canada. Metalworks Studios, by the way, again, I might be stepping out of line and saying the wrong thing, but I know they did some Drake albums in there, and some, I know they did at least one Metallica album. Lots and lots of bands record in that studio. It's an amazing studio. He's also got a school, and he's also very involved in educating kids. And so just love talking with the guy, love having these conversations. But Gil has agreed to come on the podcast. So Gil Moore from Triumph is going to come on Geezers of Gear. And he's also coming on with a well-known lighting designer, Paul Dexter, who is working with Gil on this new project that's coming up. So that is being scheduled for late summer, maybe even into September, based on everyone's schedules, but also based on this thing coming to fruition that they're going to come on and talk about. So that's exciting. In other exciting news, I'm heading to Canada this week. So by the time you hear this, I'll be in my happy place up in the mountains in Canada, the Canadian Rocky Mountains. And funny story, but my son decided he wanted to drive my car up there. So, you know, every year it's like, do I rent a car? Do I borrow one from somebody? What do I do? And do I buy one? And that was what I was going to do this year. But I found that you can't get anything decent for under like $30,000 or $40,000, and I just didn't want to do that. You know, because again, it's technically a second home, right? So, anyways, my son decided to drive my car up there. Him and another couple of 20-year-olds, and well, actually, he drove up with one guy, and another one flew in. And so he's up there with his two buddies right now, and his whole trip up there, I mean, you know, 3 or 4 days of just lots of fun and lots of sightseeing, and they stopped in skate parks across the country. So they've been having a blast. They're having a great time, and he's sending me lots of pictures and stuff. So cool. I mean, you know, can you imagine being 20 and somebody giving you the keys and a credit card for all the gas and hotels and food and stuff that you need, and sending you on a cross-country trip like that? Well, actually across 2 countries. So, you know, one of the funny stories was these 2 dodgy-looking characters show up in a pretty brand new BMW X5M at the border. And, you know, we've got loads of stuff in the back, 2 pizza ovens, like just loads of stuff in the back of the car. And these 2 guys, and one of them's wearing like a wool ski hat. And, you know, Jeremy probably hasn't showered in a day or 2. And, you know, where are you going? Canada. You know, and what are you doing up there? I don't know, just hanging out, you know, having some fun. Our buddy's meeting us up there too. And so, of course, get out of the car. And, you know, usually, like, I've driven through the border and it's just look at your passport and you go. But these 2 guys, they had to get out of the car, and the car just got torn apart. All the stuff got taken out of it. And, you know, they got quizzed to death and stuff. But finally, they let him go. So he got a good experience. He was scared to death, of course. And then finally, I hate to admit and I hate to announce, this is an announcement I don't love making, but I am becoming a real geezer this week. And so again, by the time you hear this, I will have turned 60. So that is happening on June 8th. And, you know, it's weird. As you all know, and maybe some of you are young, so you don't know this yet, but it happens really quickly. Like 1 minute you're 30 and planning your future and nothing can break you. And then all of a sudden, you know, you're mentoring young kids at 40, and you know, I don't feel old. You know, I don't feel old. I like to think I don't look incredibly old, even though I got a gray beard. I take care of myself. I'm probably healthier than I was when I was 40, but you know, I'm turning 60 this week, so it's a weird thing. And then, of course, my good friend Craig passed away 1 year older than that, 61. And so, yeah, I mean, if you're listening to this and you're my age or near my age or whatever, please just take care of yourself. Please. This episode is brought to you in part by AVL Media Group, the exclusive U.S. distributors for Midas Pro consoles, Lab Group and amplifiers, Lake processors, Tannoy installation speakers, Clark Technique signal processing, Turbo Sound loudspeakers, and Aston microphones. AVL are committed to developing long-term business relationships with their partners at every level by providing outstanding pre- and post-sale service and support. AVL Media Group, your premier North American distribution partner. Visit avlmediagroup.com today. This episode is also brought to you in part by Row Visual, the display technology behind powerhouse tours like Adele, Metallica, Ed Sheeran, and more. Comes the Topaz series. The all-purpose live events LED panel is a welcome addition to the Row product lineup with its high-precision mechanics and excellent visual quality. The platform brings flexible designs to your fingers without the hefty price point associated with custom LEDs. Topaz's all-in-one platform places the reins back in creatives' hands with flat, curve, and cube configurations that combine versatility and reliability. The newly patented The One Curve TM lock design allows users to easily curve the panel with just a twist of the wrist via the innovative hand grip. Reduce color shift and poor viewing angles as Topaz creates smooth and flawless curves that let your audience focus on the experience, not the LED screen. For more information on Topaz and other LED solutions, visit rowvisual.com. So, although he needs no introduction whatsoever, Phay MacMahon, also known as Famous, started his career in production management in 1976 with Bob Geldof and the Boomtown Rats. That was his first big gig. And since then, he's worked with some of the biggest names in the industry, including Pink, Shakira, George Michael, Aerosmith, Def Leppard, Nicki Minaj, Ricky Martin, Garth Brooks, and so on. So many. Phay has also provided production management for corporate clients such as Volvo Ocean Race, Orange Arrows Formula One, Gulf Air Formula One, Guinness, and South African breweries. Phay has just returned from Japan with the Red Hot Chili Peppers, so we're very happy that he was able to find some time in that schedule to talk with us. And we had the pleasure of talking with Phay. We had him on the podcast back in March of 2020. Early in the pandemic, very, very early in the pandemic. That's a great episode, and he tells his whole life story. We're not going to go into that here, but it's a good one, so please go back and check out. That's episode number 81, and hear how he started his career. It's pretty great. So once again, please welcome Phay MacMahon back onto the podcast. Hello, Phay.
Hi, how are you?
Do I have to call you Mr. Famous?
No. Nobody else does.
Nobody else does. That's a good answer.
Yeah.
So it looks like.
Things, but,
What's that?
They call me lots of things, but let's not go into that.
Yeah. Well, I promise I won't call you any of those names. But where are you? It looks like you're on a bus.
I am. I'm on a Beat the Street bus here in Salt Lake City. So we're getting ready for a show today. So yeah.
And that's with the Chili Peppers?
Red Hot Chili Peppers, yeah.
Nice.
So
nice. How's that going?
This is our, what did we see? We did a few shows at the beginning of the year on the West Coast, I think 4 shows. Then we had a short break, and then we went to Japan, 2 nights at the Tokyo Dome, and then back here we started in Portland, and this is the 4th show of the U.S. run.
Oh, very cool. Very cool. Yeah, you're going to be here in Florida in a couple of weeks, and I'm gone. I'm going up to my house in Canada on Friday, so for the summer.
The opposite to snowbird, eh?
Exactly. Well, no,
No, it is snowbird. Yeah.
it is snowbird. Yeah, yeah.
What
I
is that?
always refused to call myself one, but now I truly am one because I kind of go from like June until September up there, and then I
Yeah.
run the hell out of there back to Florida. So,
Yeah. Where in Canada?
do you know where Banff is?
I do indeed. Beautiful.
Yeah, there. Yeah.
Excellent.
So, yeah, I've had a house for a little over 20 years.
Yeah.
Managed to hang on to it through divorce, and so I still have it. And yeah, I love it up there. It's great.
Excellent. Yeah, it's beautiful.
Fantastic. Yeah. So, thank you for doing this first and foremost. I know you had a bit of a pain in the ass getting on because it made you download Chrome, which everyone loves to do.
Exactly.
Yeah. So yeah, so sorry about that, and thanks for doing this. It's always cool to check in with you because A, you're a pretty fun guy, and B, you do some really cool stuff. So so I was because you didn't have time to send us any information. Of course, most people don't.
Yeah.
I had to go digging, and I went looking at socials, and sadly, most of your messages on socials are paying respect to people who are dying. You know?
It's that time in life, we're literally losing a lot of friends as we go along.
Yeah.
It's very, very sad.
Yeah, I mean it really is. And I turned 60 this week, and I notice obviously that, once I hit 50, you started going, well, wait a sec, people seem to be dying quicker. There must be something going on. There's a pandemic or something.
Yeah.
But no, it's my age. It's not theirs. Like it's because more of my friends are older now. So, but yeah, just last week, I don't know if you knew Craig Burrows from High End Systems and Roby and stuff.
Sad.
Yeah. Yeah, he passed away last week. And so I'm going to that tomorrow in Austin.
Right.
And then headed to my house on Friday. So yeah, it sucks. It's a terrible thing. And I was just with him a couple weeks ago at F1.
Wow.
With Craig. So yeah, it's a drag.
Yeah, absolutely. But we got to make the most of it,
I know. Well, and all you can do is try your best to stay healthy. Drink healthy beer.
Yeah.
Do you still have the taps?
Oh yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. What's your bar called again? Your pub?
The Doghouse.
Right, the Doghouse, exactly. Yeah, I remember you telling me about that last time. That's hilarious.
Yeah.
And so you get a lot of guests, right? Like when people are touring through Ireland?
Yeah, they come out and, they'll let me know that they're in town and they'll pop out and have a few pints and a bit of a laugh,
Yeah.
So it's become quite the place,
Yeah, that is awesome. That's so cool. Yeah, that's very cool. So Chili Peppers, how's it doing?
It's great. It's mental. It's like they decided to downsize to amphitheaters, which is a bit of a strange statement,
Yeah, isn't it?
But it's every night, every ticket sold. It's completely sold out. It's like it's crazy,
Really smart though, because actually one of the things I wanted to talk to you about is exactly this topic where everyone thinks they should be playing in stadiums, and every theater act thinks they should be playing in arenas.
Yeah.
And not only is the math not working very well, but it's just not creating a very pleasant experience, I think, even for the fans. The band is looking out at some empty seats, and the fans are sitting a lot further away than they probably need to be.
Yeah, I mean, the interesting thing about this is when you look at this and you look at like every single seat is gone, every ticket's gone, and there's a huge demand for it. So if you look at some baseball stadiums, they hold, some of them hold 50, 60,000, but a lot of them hold sort of 30,000.
Yeah.
So to do a baseball stadium, obviously we got to bring in a stage. We got to bring in, ground cover, delay towers, all the infrastructure.
Yeah.
So when you do all that, like when you look at the cost of all that, the cost is huge.
Yeah.
So I think with Live Nation doing this, they own all the amphitheaters.
Yeah.
So everything's here. It's all in place. So all that cost is gone.
Yeah.
And everybody's closer.
Well, and when you're talking about a baseball stadium, going from 18 or 17,000 in an arena to 30,000 in a baseball stadium, probably the net gain isn't that much when you look at all the expenses, right?
Exactly, like
Yeah,
when you do stuff like that, and like, the thing here is like that. Um, it's already set up. The whole thing is set up really well. As we say, everybody's closer,
yeah,
and it's been really like you look at the gorge. We did the gorge the other day. Like that's 22,000 people.
yeah,
That's a
yeah.
lot of people.
Yes, it is. Yeah,
And what they're doing here is they're not playing the major cities. They're going to the secondary cities that they wouldn't be able to do with a baseball stadium.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So it's quite clever, I think.
Are they doing any multi-night?
Toronto, we do 2 nights in Toronto,
Oh,
but that's the only one that we're really doing.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So
That's great. That's fantastic. It's like one of the ones I think that everybody's talking about is the Black Keys, who, I think they had a pretty successful theater run in Europe, and then came over here, and the arenas weren't selling real well.
yeah, I did the Black Keys a couple of years ago, and it was great. And again, we did because the last time I think we spoke, I was with Ricky Martin down in South America doing
Yeah,
stadiums and all that
yeah,
sort of stuff. And then after that, I went to the Black Keys. Chris Kansi called me and said, "Look, would you be interested in this?" And I said, "Sure." And it was 8 trucks around amphitheaters, and they did great business.
yeah,
You know,
yeah,
but then we did a tour in Europe, and again they did phenomenal business. Absolutely right the way through.
yeah.
And then I then left to go back to Aerosmith and whatever, and a new team took over, and they just did that run in Europe, in the UK and Europe or whatever, and apparently it was great.
Yeah,
But they put the tickets on sale here, and for whatever reason, it just
yeah, yeah.
it died. And
And
but
that's a great band. So it's
it's
not
a
like
amazing band,
yeah, it's not
because
like the product sucks,
no, the product is, and people used to, promoters would say to me, like, so when you'd be advancing, they say, do you need any gases? Is there pyro? And I'd say, I'd always say to them, look, this is a concept. I'm not sure if it'll ever catch on. There is no pyro. There is no gases. There is no cryo. There is no special effects. There's no confetti. I said, there's no Pro Tools. I said, this
Yeah,
is a band that actually just plug in and play. As I say, it's a
that is
concept. I
cool.
don't think it'll ever catch on.
Yeah, that is so cool. That is awesome. I
And they
love
really
that.
are. They really are. They were incredible. Like, I mean, Dan, the singer, he plugs in. In fact, there's nobody on stage. There's no wireless on stage. Everybody plugs straight
Oh,
in.
really? That's
Yeah, it's
interesting.
very, very old fashioned.
Yeah,
It's
I love their
everything on
music.
stage.
I
Ah,
love that band. They're a great band.
and they're funny. Like, I mean, some of their videos and stuff are very funny.
Yeah, yeah. Well,
But
and I mean, I don't know them, obviously. I've never worked for them, but I've heard them like on, I heard them on Joe Rogan. I heard them on a couple podcasts and stuff, and they sound like hilarious guys and smart guys too.
yeah, I mean, I can honestly say I was there, well, probably about a year and a half, and I never ever got asked to go to the dressing room once. There was never a complaint.
Really?
They just went out, they did the gig, they were happy. If they had, a minor sound issue or something like that, they'd speak to the monitor guy or they'd speak to their tech. And I was just never, like with other acts, you're dragged in and, what
Yeah,
happened here? And, you get, it's like you're almost court-martialed. Like it's like, but
yeah,
it was just very, very, they were really good, great to work with, and very, very pleasant.
yeah. Well, and it's funny because when you read online, I don't know. I think it's the singer who's always sort of vilified for being a dick to work with or whatever. And then I talk to people who've worked with them, and they say the opposite.
Yeah.
So they're getting a bad rap for being, prima donnas or something because it just doesn't seem to be true.
As I say, I never experienced any of that,
Yeah,
and the only thing I will say is that they're very, very, very specific about their sound and about their setup, but
yeah,
most bands
yeah.
that
Why
make it
wouldn't you be?
are, and
Yeah,
they have a right to be. It's like
yeah,
it's their image, it's their sound. They have an absolute right to be.
yeah, yeah,
And we're there to make sure that it happens for them.
yeah. So, I read something the other day when I was just searching around trying to find some notes and some what have you been up to and stuff. And I don't remember that we talked about this when you were on the podcast because I think you were on in March of 2020. So you were on, I think, right when shit hit the fan.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah,
just read
it
that,
hit the fan a few days later.
yeah. Oh, it
Yeah,
was after that
yeah,
shit
it
hit
was
the fan.
just after that.
Oh, so you were still. So, because I just read a funny story, or not funny, I just read a story that you were in Mexico with Ricky Martin, and you and Guns N' Roses were both in Mexico and
Yeah,
were like two of the last acts to go home, basically.
yeah.
Yeah.
It was like, which one of us will switch out the lights, as we
Yeah.
leave.
Yeah. What a
Like,
weird time. It's hard to think back of all of that stuff, because it was just so corny. Like the whole
it
thing was
was,
just, what is going on?
yeah, it was bizarre, like, because but the fact that we were down there, we didn't think about it so much, we weren't hearing it as much.
Yeah.
And because we came from, we were, sorry, hang on a second,
It's
radio
all
there.
good.
Sorry about that.
It's all
Um,
good.
yeah, we weren't hearing that much about it. And the next thing is, we were doing. I think we were coming out of Buenos Aires or Montevideo or something like that, and we had Mike down from Sound Moves at the time, or Rocket. I can't remember if it was Rocket or Sound Moves by then, but. And he was saying what was going on in the States, and we were like, really, and so we were doing the air freight out of there and not really thinking much about it. And once we'd finished palletizing and everything, we'd always get a few cases of beer for the guys that are doing it, and he turns up with Corona, so we all had a great laugh about that.
Yeah,
Anyway,
that's hilarious.
we flew from there to Mexico, and we set up. That was the day that we spoke and whatever. And we went and we did 2 more shows, and it was done. It was literally, we were set up.
Wow.
I got a call about 4 o'clock in the evening, and from management saying, "Take it all out. You're going home."
Wow. That is just crazy.
Yeah,
That's crazy. Well, and it's weird. I didn't realize that I had talked to you just a couple days before that went down. So
yeah.
I hope you didn't blame me, Phay.
No, not at all. No.
Okay, good. So
yeah, it was just one of those things where what the hell is going on, and I think we all got out of there, probably on some of the last flights to get out of Mexico.
Yeah.
Managed to get home. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a crazy time for sure. And then, so when did you start back up again?
We started back up with Ricky again in what was it? When everything started to open, we started up. We were one of the first arena tours out. It was Ricky and Enrique.
Yeah, I remember it. Yeah, so that was probably early 21.
Yeah, it was. I think it was September 21.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
And we were the first. We were one of the first arena tours.
Yeah.
There was people going out in amphitheaters and stuff, but we were one of the first arena ones.
Drive-ins.
Yeah, the drive-ins, all those
parking lots. Yeah.
And so we went down on that, and I always remember the conversations. People saying, "How do we manage it? How do we manage it?" etc. And we came up with the conclusion that, look, every state has its own regulations and its own outlook on it. Every city has its own regulations, its own outlook on it, and every venue will have its own regulations and outlook on it. So we decided that what we would do is just concentrate on backstage, and make sure everybody wore masks, and keep the whole thing down.
Right.
It turned out that we had one guy right at the beginning. He called me and he says, "I'm not feeling well. I'm in the hotel." And this was in Vegas. We were rehearsing at the MGM, and we were staying there. So I said, "Okay, stay in your room. We'll send over a kit to you." He tested positive. He stayed there for 10 days. Luckily enough, we were in Vegas, so there was many people there, and Wiseman was supplying all the video gear. So he basically said, "Look, we'll find people." And what we did was we found engineers. It was an engineer. We found an engineer that was off each night to cover during the rehearsals.
Yeah.
And the first show. And he then did his 10 days, flew to Chicago, and he was good to go for the second show.
And that was it. No other illnesses or anything.
The
Oh,
whole,
wow.
yeah, the
You
whole
did
thing.
good.
We really did, and what we said was like, guys, anyone go in front of a house, wear a mask, do all the stuff. We can't control the audience, but Ricky even had it that if anyone that wasn't singing on stage wore a mask.
Okay.
He was really, really strict on it, and that was the only case we had the entire time.
Wow, that's impressive.
Yeah, it was really good. Some of it's luck, I'm sure, but what we said to people was, look, go out in groups and eat outdoors, drink outdoors. Luckily enough, the weather was good, you know. And I know you want to see your friends on other tours. Get them to meet you there and sit at another table. Do not be going up hugging them and all that,
Yeah.
And I think everybody did it, and we got through it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good. I think
Bizarre.
Overall, we all got through it for the most part, right? Like somehow, miraculously, we survived as an industry too, which wasn't always a given. It was like, Jesus, what's going to happen?
Yeah, exactly. And there were so many people against, vaccination and all that, and it was that was their choice. I had one guy who I said, look, this is the tour policy, and he went, I ain't, I'm not. I'm not getting the vaccine. I said, well, look, that's your choice. I said, but he says, I'm not putting that shit in my body. I said, well, I've known you for quite some time. I said, I've seen you putting your body. I said, I don't think a vaccine's going to harm you.
Yeah. Me and Wiseman had that conversation, by the way. And he's like, who am I to be saying I'm not putting something in my body? Yeah. So, no, it's pretty funny. But yeah, and since then, like what's been, so, I mean, times have shifted so much since those early days in 21, post-COVID, right? So what has been some of the biggest challenges that you've had moving these shows around? There's freight, there's supply chain, there's all of those things, people. What's been the greatest problem?
I think crew, because we lost, everybody that we talked to, we reckon we lost probably about 30% of our people, which is a huge amount. So there's a lot of retraining. Many different tours, and it wasn't just one vendor. Every vendor had it. No matter who you spoke to, they were all saying the same thing. It's like, it's hard to get people. The industry isn't the same as it used to be anyway. It's not as, back in the day, we all thought it was glamorous and it was a lot of fun, But it's a business now, and it's not as glamorous as it used to be.
Yeah.
And people don't want to leave home,
Yeah. Yeah, I get it.
Gypsies, tramps, and thieves, and we just all left and went and did it,
Yeah.
Whereas the younger people, they're not really that sure that they want to do that,
Yeah. Well, and it's interesting, I talk to people about this all the time, but, people think that it's still a gypsies, tramps, and thieves industry, and it's not a real job, and they can't make real money and that kind of thing. But, you can go out on a tour and make a decent income now, especially if you don't have, 13 college degrees or whatever. But, it can be a very good life,
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I think there needs to be some better marketing, perhaps. And I talk to people about that all the time. But yeah. So yeah.
But vendors, vendors come back pretty well. We lost a few, but not too many.
Yeah.
But they come back quite well, and they managed this, as best they could. So, hats off to them all. Like, freight, lighting, video, the whole lot. Like, everybody to come back into it and got it together,
And they're all thriving now. It's crazy how well the industry has done through this, because like I somehow became sort of the sounding board or whatever for so many of these people during COVID. I was doing this weekly Zoom call for everyone, and people were dropping in and just depressed and ready to close their businesses, and some were practically suicidal. And it was desperate times for some people. Like, and I'd get private calls from people saying, I don't know what to do. I'm about to lose my house. I'm about to lose my wife. I'm, losing everything, my business that I've built for 25 years. And like a couple of them I helped, there's one in particular, I won't mention names, but, the bank was ready to take the founders' homes, and the bank were just being dicks, basically.
Yeah.
Like it wasn't even that they'd missed payments. It was on covenants, it was just a stupid thing. And I ended up helping them sell their company.
Right.
And so, they had personal guarantees on all the debt, and it
Wow.
was, $4 or $5 million, as I recall. And, they were going to lose their homes. They were going to lose everything, their business, their livelihoods. And we ended up helping them sell their business, and they're now, doing other things, and they've got some money in their pockets, and they're happy. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, it was tough times.
Well, I mean, even just as I say, I'm sitting here on a Beat the Street bus. Like, I mean, York started Beat the Street right before the pandemic.
Yeah, that's tough, man. Oof.
Hats off to him for getting through it.
Yeah.
I mean, he built these buses, and they just sat.
Yeah. Yeah, well, and I would assume that you've got some debt that you're now carrying, and the bank expects to get paid back. They don't care.
Yeah.
So that was probably really hard times for a minute.
Yeah.
And, knowing the rates for buses coming out of COVID, he's doing okay now.
He can't build them quick enough now.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
And it's like, the same thing with trucking companies and stuff. Like, I mean, it was tough times for them. Because like all that we've been offered was like Amazon work and all that, which didn't.
Yeah.
And this good friend of mine in Ireland, Frank McGuinness, and he is McGuinness Trucking. He pretty much mothballed most of it. He wouldn't do those. He wouldn't do those things because, as he says, you have a blowout, a tire, and there's your profit gone for that job. So he just said no. He said he was going. He managed to keep his drivers on, and he mothballed most of it, and just did some very, very work that he had other work for Intel or something like that.
Yeah.
And he managed to get through it.
Yeah. I read maybe it was the same article where I read the other stuff, but I read that you actually took on some driving opportunities and just whatever, just to keep the Guinness pumps flowing, I guess.
It was just to keep my mind active. I mean, I drove trucks years and years ago. I drove my first one illegally, obviously, as you do at that age.
I think we all did, yeah.
Edwin Shirley semi, and the driver happened to have too many Guinness in Dublin one time, and he got locked up. So we're sitting there thinking, how the hell are we going to do this? And I said, well, I drove around the parking lot of the TV studio the other day. I think I can handle it. So I jumped in the truck and I drove it from Dublin to Belfast.
Oh my goodness, that's crazy.
Edwin and Roy Lamb came up to see me, and they said, what do you, what made you do that? And I said, we just needed to get it here, and I said, it was like, the job's done, the gig's done, everybody should be happy. They said, look, get your license and we'll insure you because, you'll do this again. I said, but I can't insure till I'm 25. And they said, well, we'll figure that out. I said, okay. I said, well, look, I'm going to be 21 in a few weeks. I said, I'll get it then. And they looked at each other and they looked at me and they went, you're not 21? And I went, no. I said, why? They said, you've been driving our bobtails around Europe for the last 2 years. And I said, sure, what's wrong with that? They said, you weren't insured. I said, that was in the past. Don't worry about it.
Well, they had a point.
Yeah.
And so did you.
Yeah. We're still here. But I learned to drive trucks, and I did a couple of Queen tours as a truck driver, and I did
really?
tour as a truck driver. Yeah, it's great.
I read another thing where you had a snapped throttle cable.
Oh, with Jake.
Yeah.
Jake Berry and myself. Yeah, we were out on in fact, it was the first Def Leppard tour in the UK, a little theatre tour, and Jake was the production manager and I was the lighting designer.
Yeah.
So our truck driver had burnt her hand. It was Sandy from Trans Am. She had burnt her hand, so her brother drove the semi, and we said we'd drive the bobtail to get to London. So we drove overnight from St. Austell, and we stopped at Jake's mum's house for tea on the way, like at 4 in the morning, you know.
As you do, yeah.
But next thing, anyhow, the throttle cable snapped. So we got under it and we poked it up through where the gear linkage was, and we got an old rag and held it round it. So basically, I would steer and change gears, and Jake would literally pull the throttle, and then we'd swap over, you know. And of
When
course,
his arm got tired.
yeah, and when you get tired, then you'd suddenly have whoever was on the throttle would be sort of falling asleep, and the truck would be flying, and you come to a roundabout and go, let go of the bloody throttle.
Yeah. Oh my God.
But we got there anyway, and some good laughs,
Well, it reminds me of one time when I was a kid, and my friend had this like boogie van thing, like in the U.S. in the 70s, we would buy these like 60s Ford or Chevy vans, and they'd have the little like teardrop sort of window things at the back, and big fat tires and stuff, and a big sound system. So he had one of those, and one night we were out drinking, and of course went to drive home as you do, and he only had reverse. None of the other gears would work. And so we drove from one side of Calgary to the other side of Calgary with him drunk in reverse. And so I'm hanging out the window going, a little bit left. No, my left, not your left. No, a little bit right, And I mean, it was how we survived that, and how he didn't go to jail. I have no idea.
The COVID thing, what happened there was the movies came back in Ireland,
Yeah.
And so I only live 500 yards from the main studio, from Ardmore Studios, and they were looking for people to drive, because what would happen is they would bring over, say, 40 trucks, from the UK, and they'd leave 5 people there, and they'd just get local drivers to move them at night. So it was that The Last Duel, which was Matt Damon and Ridley Scott, he produced it, whatever,
Yeah.
It was that one, and they had a lot of trucks. So anyhow, what they did was they hired Eddie Fawcett, who was Eddie owns a big circus in Ireland, So they hired him to do all the to move the trucks. So Eddie phones me like last minute, and he says, "Look, I'm short a driver." And I said, "I don't know any." He says, "Come up and do it." And I said, "I haven't driven for a while." He says, "Don't worry." He says, "We'll knock the cobwebs off you."
Yeah.
So anyhow, I go up and I spot this tractor trailer, and it was a Mercedes or something. I went, "That's a perfect one there for me." And he went, "Yeah, hang on." So he's talking to the transport manager. The transport manager says, "There's one up the back of the house, and it was really awkward to get in, so you need someone good to get it out." He turns around and he goes, "Famous, that's yours." I went, "You asshole." I've been to it. I couldn't find a handbrake. I couldn't find anything on it. I'd never driven a Mercedes before. I was all over the place, but I came out sweating buckets. But I got it out of there and headed down the road, and I enjoyed it. I had a good laugh doing it.
Yeah.
And he said, he calls me then a couple of days later. He says, "Look, they want us to do some more." And I said, "What's this?" I said, "Fawcett's Driving Agency or something." And he said, "Yeah." So we got known as the FDA, Fawcett's Driving Agency. But it was all guys like Anto Byrne. He's a music. He's in the music industry. He has he had his license. Niall Walsh, who has his own company over there moving stuff.
Right.
And Niall, Anto, Eddie, myself. It was a lot of people from the music industry.
Yeah.
And so we got pretty well known, and we got to know the slide outs on the dressing room trailers and all that. So instead of standing around waiting for everything, we just got stuck in. So all the teams wanted us, and you'd go out at 5 o'clock at night and you'd be home by 10.
That's fantastic.
So they'd do a wrap, and we'd take the stuff to the next location, drop it, and then head home. But it was good fun. But we went down. We had to go down to where was it? Down to the Canary Islands one time. They had some stuff down there, so we had to bring it back from there. And there was 16 trucks, so they flew us down, and we had to go from Fuerteventura to Gran Canaria, and then Gran Canaria to Spain, and then drive up through Spain, and then across to Ireland. So that was an interesting one, because we had stowaways and everything, coming out of Gran Canaria.
Oh,
So
Jesus.
very, very interesting. It was horrible to see because like they were hiding in generators, everything. It was an experience that I never
Why
want.
is that? Just because they needed to get out of there, or?
Yeah, well, it's what they do is they'd come across from Morocco and stuff, and they'd get on trucks there and try and get to Europe,
Hmm.
for a better life. And they were like sort of 19, 20 year olds. It was horrible, and like they had nothing. They had little tiny little bags. That was their existence. It was an eye opener.
That's rough.
Yeah.
That's rough.
So there was one in because I had a generator with a dressing room behind it, and Niall said, "Check your generator." I said, "That's too small," and he says, "Check it." So we opened it up, and there was a guy lying on top of the engine.
Oh my God.
He was about to do a 32-hour journey on a ferry. He would have died.
Wow.
So
Wow.
we found him.
That is incredible.
Yeah, it was horrible.
Well, it just tells you how desperate they are, I guess, right?
Yeah, there was 11 in total were taken off our vehicles.
Yeah.
You know?
Jesus. I mean, it reminds me of that crazy image that you saw when the jets were trying to take off from Afghanistan and people were like hanging on to the wings or the wheels or anything, that's not going to end well.
No,
But
desperation, and like these kids were desperate. They were obviously leaving their family behind them. They were leaving everything.
yeah.
And, and they were willing to do this to get something better out of life,
Yeah.
So,
I live here in South Florida, and I remember when I first moved here, dumb kid from Canada, and seeing these people coming in on like inner tubes from Cuba, or like just these boats that they'd kind of made out of 4 logs that they tied together or whatever, right? Like you're just not going to make it, and the very few who do are pretty beat up by the time they get here, It's but it's just the conditions must be that bad that you're willing to chance it, I guess.
Yeah, it's unreal.
Yeah. So you're going back out on Peace Out, right?
Yeah, we rehearsed that last year. We were in Rockledge for 3 weeks. We rehearsed it, and we got 3 shows in, and then Stephen lost his voice.
Yeah.
Horrible, because everybody got like a month and a half out of it, and that was it. And we had to quit.
Steven Tyler is like I'm not a fan of some of the bands that are sort of trying to prolong their careers, especially singers who can't sing anymore. Right. And Steven Tyler is not that guy. Like Steven Tyler, to me, is a stud. Like he's a rock star. He's singing so well. He still has the hair and the bandanas hanging off and scarves and stuff. And he looks like a rock star, and he's 76 years old.
Yeah, he was like, on that, he was amazing. He really was. And the best frontman out there.
Yeah.
He's hilarious. He's, he is. When you if you look up rock star in the dictionary, there's probably
it's him. Yeah, it's him and Mick Jagger. I mean, Jesus, Mick Jagger, same thing at 80 years old.
And running around like a
running, like sprinting.
Yeah.
Out into the audience.
Yeah.
And
it's,
watching video of him is just blowing me away, because again, I'm turning 60 this week and I'm thinking, oh my God, it's over. I'm done. But I watch him sprinting across the stage or out into the audience and I'm like, okay, I got some time left.
Yeah.
And
Steven's the same. Like he's up and down that stage. He's so athletic. It's unreal.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it really is. I know you probably can't say anything, but I just hope that he's able to hold it together. I hope that, and I'm sure you're circling dates and going, come on, make it.
We're all hoping. It's great show. Like I mean, it looked great. It sounded great. It was a great team out there. It's all at one end, but it's sold 360. And it's like it's a big show. It was 187 rigging points. A lot of motion control from Tate. It was Cosmo. He designed the lighting.
Yeah,
it's a real rock. Because to do something, in a sort of in the round situation, to make it look like a rock show is difficult. You know,
Yeah.
it's really difficult. But Cosmo did it. He really did
Yeah.
it. It looked
You're
amazing. You know.
you're talking about the what was it? Finley? Not yeah, Finley Park.
No. About the actual
Oh,
piece.
the touring. Yeah, the touring one.
Yeah.
So is the touring design much different than the
Yeah.
one off that you did?
Yeah, it's literally the touring design. It's like a triangle at one end of the arena.
Yeah.
So it's a big triangular, and it's like the video walls are up top. So there's like three video walls in a big triangle, and then the lighting rig sits up within the video walls.
Oh, okay.
So
Interesting.
it's really really interesting.
Yeah.
And then he has, all the trusses are on motion control. He's got the big icon that they used in Fenway and whatever,
Yeah.
that moves. Um, it's a really, really clever show, and it was,
Yeah, I really, really hope to see it. I hope they hold it together because obviously, if they have to end it again, you're getting closer and closer to not being able to go out and do it properly, and as we age, obviously.
and they were playing so well. Like,
Yeah,
really
yeah,
playing well. It was just so sad. We just couldn't believe it. We thought when it happened at first, we thought, okay, we're gonna just cancel Toronto maybe, and maybe we'll cancel a week.
yeah.
And that was it. So we literally just sent all the trucks to storage and stuff. Because we were convinced, like, this is a week from now or 10 days we'll be back on the road.
Right.
And then word came back that it was a lot worse than anybody expected.
Yeah. Yeah, well, good luck with that because, I'm sure it's going to capture a big part of your calendar too. And,
It goes from September through till March,
Yeah. I know for Cosmo, it's been tough too. I've been talking to him because, it was so weird because going through COVID when, like he has all these old artists,
Yeah.
he's got Judas Priest and AC/DC and Aerosmith and all these bands were like, oh no, we're going to be careful, and so they were the last ones to go back out. Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then everyone said, I think Cosmo, they're all going to go out at the same time. Right. And,
but it worked out for him,
it really did.
He
so
did.
Far.
He did Aerosmith. Then he went to Priest, and Priest he had to leave to go to AC/DC. AC/DC finishes, and Aerosmith starts.
I know, it's amazing, isn't it? Like it's almost too good to be true.
That's same here. The Chili's finish and Aerosmith starts.
That's
so
amazing.
Both looking at each other, going, "Ooh,"
Phay, did you see any of the Judas Priest dates?
I didn't, unfortunately.
I don't know if you're a fan or ever have been or anything, but I was always, growing up, I was a Judas Priest fan. I'll tell you what, that band sounds as good now as they did friggin' 35, 40 years ago.
Well, when we came over originally with Def Leppard in 1980, we did a few shows with Pat Travers along the West Coast, and then we joined. It was Judas Priest, Scorpions, and Def Leppard.
I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah, remember that? And it was great. It was just a great show every night, But it's like, a lot of these rock bands, like, I mean, it's Aerosmith, AC/DC, Priest, Leppard. They've all they're like a good wine. They've matured with age,
Yeah.
There's a lot of them, there's a few of them definitely have, and those four they have,
Well, I mean, Def Leppard's another one where, I think I saw them, I don't know, before the stadium tour, like 2 or 3 years ago, and they were as good as I'd ever heard them.
Yeah.
They were really, really good. Joe Elliott could still sing. He sounded pretty good and fooled you on the parts that he couldn't sing anymore. Yeah. And, I mean, they were fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
Were you working with Def Leppard when they did the In the Round thing, like back in the 80s or whatever?
Oh, yeah, Hysteria, yeah. I was the lighting designer on that.
Were you?
Yeah.
That was such a cool show. I saw it at the, I don't remember, I think it was the Saddle Dome in Calgary. It was in Calgary that I saw it, but I think it was the Saddle Dome. It was after the Corral.
Saddle Dome, yeah.
Yeah, which is a shit venue, by the way, as I know you know. Yeah, you can do whatever you want, but don't hang anything.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's crazy. But that was such a cool show. It was just a fantastic design. It was maybe Yes was the first in the round that I saw, but that had to be the second or third. It was right up
Yeah.
in the top of that list.
Yes,
And
stage. That was Michael Tate. Mickey Tate designed that.
yeah,
And a lot of people don't realize that Tate, that Mickey designed that, and he was Yes's lighting designer, and he came to the States. He met Roy and Jean Clare in Australia, and he came to the States, and that's how he ended up in Lidditz. And he started a lighting company. So he
yeah,
built his own lighting desk, and he had his own lighting company. And first time I went to Lidditz was in 1982, because I was the lighting designer on Olivia Newton-John.
yeah,
And he was supplying the lighting, and Claire, of course, were supplying the PA system. And, you say to people now, Tate Lighting, and they look at you like you've two heads, It's like,
yeah,
no. It was a lighting company in the beginning.
yeah.
But,
Did
yeah.
you ever think that they were going to get as massive as they are, like both Tate and Claire?
It's unreal. It's, the whole Lidditz situation is
It is
incredible.
It's
And
nuts.
it's amazing. Like, I remember being in Lidditz before Rock Lidditz, and Troy Clare was showing me the drawings and everything of what they were proposing, and I remember thinking, it looks amazing, but will it ever happen?
Yeah,
Did it happen?
man, has it ever? And
Yeah,
it just ain't stopping. Like they just keep getting
no,
bigger and bigger. Same with Claire.
yeah, it's incredible, but they're great companies,
Yeah, yeah,
they're terrific, So
yeah. I mean, if they were terrible companies and you hated them or whatever, then you'd be like, they're not going to grow much bigger. But they just keep doing everything right. Like, what are you going to do? You can't, go against them or anything because they're nice people and they're good companies. So,
yeah,
hey,
and it's
good on them.
Mickey still, like we were there during rehearsals, and I think it was the second day I went down to per diem in the hotel, and I was standing there having a glass of wine with some people, and next thing in walks Mr. Tate himself, like as funny as ever,
Yeah, yeah,
And just he came around most nights and hung out with us, and he's it's hard to believe what he's achieved,
it really is. Yeah, I haven't seen him for a couple of years.
He's great.
I went back and listened to our first podcast that we did, and heard you telling a story about Peter Clark at Super Mick, and that brought back some interesting memories for me too.
Yeah.
He was one of the original crazy people.
Oh yeah, I mean it was like back in the day it was that old thing like where somebody call up and it was like looking for a lighting system, and the everybody used to always say two trusses, two crew, two spots, $2,000. That's how we close it.
So easy.
Simple.
Yeah. Is he? I hate to ask, and I don't even typically ask this, but is he still around? Is he among us?
Oh, he's among us, yeah, absolutely. But he doesn't do anything in the music industry anymore.
No, he stopped a long time ago.
Yeah, he turns up to add a bit of comedy to things every so often,
Oh, does he?
Yeah, he'll turn up and the whole place just starts cracking him,
Of course, yeah, he's a funny dude.
He was a very funny dude.
Yeah. I didn't realize this. I just noticed recently that you joined this 360 collective thing.
Yeah.
Can you tell me any more about that?
So it's new, but Roland, I've known Roland now for quite some time, probably 10 years or whatever,
Yeah.
We worked together. I think the first thing we did was Spandau Ballet together, and
yeah.
Production manager. He was working with Patrick. Patrick was he was the LD with Spandau forever,
Yeah.
So Patrick and Terry came in to program it, and then Roland was going to run it. So I worked with him, and we've been great friends ever since,
Yeah.
So he started talking about it and everything like that, what the whole idea is, and basically what it is, it's a company that, everything, they can take any concept from anything, be it a band or a corporate or a big TV show or anything, sporting event. There's so many people in there that are qualified in all these events,
Yeah.
and it's just a one-stop shop, It's just a big company, but it's got a lot of big names in it now.
It really does. It's a who's who.
Yeah.
It's an amazing list of people, and I've always been a fan of collectives. I know not everyone believes in the concept, I guess. I have a friend who's got a very successful tech company collective, and like very successful. They're doing really, really well. And they have everything from chief technology officers to coders to marketing directors to all kinds of different people. But they work for Fortune 500 types of companies, and especially turnarounds. Like if a venture capital firm is going to come in and buy a company or whatever, they'll come in and do a turnaround, and they'll put in a interim chief technology officer, interim chief financial officer, interim whatever. And I've spent a lot of time talking with him about how it all works from a financial standpoint, especially, like how does everyone get paid, and it's such an interesting concept, but what a powerful, entity, because, like when we talk about things like Tate and Claire, it's hard to be the small one when you're dealing with such huge corporations now, whether it's, Live Nation or the artists themselves or the sound or lighting company or, whatever it is. Like you don't want to get squashed by all of them. And so sometimes you need a much larger sort of umbrella over your head.
Yeah.
And it seems to make a lot of sense.
Yeah. I mean, as I say, we've just put it together. So
yeah, it's early days.
Progresses,
Yeah. Yeah. Are you working on any cool big corporate stuff these days, or?
No, I've literally got this, and I've got the Aerosmith thing, and that's enough for me.
Yeah.
It's, because obviously as this rolls on, we start planning the Aerosmith thing. So
yeah,
there's enough in those two.
Yeah. Do you ever get to see your wife, or?
Yeah, now and again.
Yeah. It's always a difficult part of touring, isn't it?
Yes, it is. Yeah.
But it's weird how many people I know got divorced during COVID, because it's like the wife would turn around and go, "Why are you still here?
Exactly.
Get out."
Yeah, go play in traffic. Do something.
Yeah. They just drove each other nuts, because even Cosmo told me, like, I was thinking the other day, I've never been with my wife for more than like a month.
Yeah.
And so sometimes that puts a strain on a relationship when you're not used to that kind of stuff, right? As weird as it sounds.
Well, the thing is, they have their own thing going on as well.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, they've figured out a life with you on the road.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So
do you do any F1 stuff anymore?
No, I haven't done that since the 2000s, but I still watch it. I still enjoy it.
Yeah.
And in fact, back in the 2000s, in the early years, we were with Orange Arrows, and it was a thing that was built by Brilliant Stages, and we took that out around the world. And our driver was Jos Verstappen, who was Max.
Yeah, Max's dad. Yeah.
Dad, and literally we had races that he would come up on the unit to do a meet and greet thing, although he didn't like it. He was, he never liked doing that. But it was him and Pedro de la Rosa, and Max would be sitting in the buggy at the side,
Yeah, that's funny.
Yeah,
that's funny.
I think that he'd be world champion now,
Seems to have worked out okay.
Yeah, slightly.
Yeah, my son's a racing driver, and
how's he doing?
He's doing okay. He's just realizing that his dad is missing a couple zeros off the end of his bank account to really get him to the top.
Right. Yeah.
It's kind of a weird world in racing right now. It's there's so many billionaires in the world, and unless you happen to be attached to one of them, it makes it much harder.
Right.
So,
well, there's an Irish guy now that's
most drivers these days are showing up with a big bag of cash, and so there's not very many drivers making it in on merit anymore.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
Well, there's an Irish guy now that's doing well in, I think it's Formula 3 or Formula 2, but he's with McLaren, and he's a guy that John Campion sponsored and put him together. Remember John?
Yeah. Which guy's that, though? Which driver?
Alex Dunn, I think his name is.
Oh, I know Alex Dunn. Yeah, my son raced against him not last year, maybe the year before.
There you go.
Yeah, we know Alex Dunn.
Yeah, so he's doing well, and
Yeah.
that's thanks to John and what he did with the Irish motorsport stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh, so
Yeah,
yeah,
we raced for an Irish team last year for a little while, and ended up my son did the Jim Clark. It was like the 50th anniversary of him winning his first championship or whatever,
yeah,
and so we were at some castle. I think it was called maybe Dun Castle or something. I don't remember, but we were in the little town where Jim Clark was from, and there's a castle there, and
oh,
they had
brilliant.
this big event there, and my son was there like signing autographs by his race car and stuff. So it was pretty fun being
Excellent.
included,
Yeah,
and got to drive a Formula car down the streets because they couldn't back the trucks up onto this castle property, right, into the yard. And so he had to drive the car through the town, and it was pretty cool getting high-fived from people along the streets and stuff.
yeah,
But yeah. So what else did I want to ask you? Your kids, do they still work in the business?
they do. Yeah, yeah. The eldest, the three of them were out on Ed Sheeran for for that run that was
Oh,
there.
that's cool.
Yeah, they all went out doing videos. So the eldest one, Owen, he was the video crew chief on that, and they had 18 video crew on it.
Ah,
But he decided then that he wanted to change his career. So he was saying he was thinking of doing stage management. So
okay.
then Casper Brogard, who is now Lars, was always the production manager plus audio guy for Rod for years. So his son Casper has taken over as production manager. So Casper then asked Owen, my son, to be stage manager.
Huh.
So he's out there with Rod Stewart at the moment, stage
Oh,
managing that.
oh, that's cool.
And
And
then
the
the
other
other,
two, what are they doing?
they're out on ACDC.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, they're out with Cosmo.
That's
Yeah.
fantastic. So is that how you would have scripted it, or did they just do that all on their own?
Did it all on their own. Yeah.
So you weren't like saying, "Hey guys, you want to get in this business? Do it, do it, do it."
No, they literally came to me and said, can we have a go at it? And I said, sure. And that was it. It was their choice.
That's fantastic. That's
Yeah.
good. Yeah, and my son still is just a gearhead. Like in his head, he just wants to drive race cars, and
Right.
maybe someday he'll realize he needs a job, and and he'll come and ask me the same questions.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I know you have more important other things to do, and so I appreciate you taking a little bit of time to come and chat with me. It's always fun catching up.
Yeah, absolutely.